What is up, everybody? Welcome to Destination the Show, episode 86. This is our 2025 MLB Draft Review episode. My name is Jamie Cameron, joined, as always, by Jeremy Nygaard. Have you slept? Are you recovered? How are you feeling now that the 2025 MLB Draft is in the rearview mirror, buddy?
I mean, I feel good. It's like life returns to normal a little bit.
Yeah.
Working normal, trying to do the kids things that you kind of push off.
Yeah.
Because I even said to my wife the other day, I'm like, why am I so tired? Part of that had to do with being up real late Friday, Nelly concert, all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, a part of it is just like thinking so much about something that you really have no control over.
Yep.
And so I obviously, I think if people have followed me for the 15 years I've done this, I've scaled back a little bit, which is partially because you've just jumped into the deep end and love swimming in it. So I feel good. I think the bigger question is, how do you feel?
I don't feel good. I'm back on my regular midseason grumpy form. But you're right about life returning to normal, and it's so fleeting, the draft, right? Like you get past the high of day one, and then you get into the slog of day two. I hate the shortened format, by the way.
Really?
I hate it.
Really?
I don't enjoy it at all.
Okay, stop though.
It's too much.
You had to work on Monday.
Yeah, that's true. So my PTO got denied on Monday, which was frustrating. I was in serious FOMO mode. On my lunch break, I hopped onto the Just Baseball live stream, which was fun, but also I was like, I should be doing this all day.
Right.
So that was a bummer.
If you had the ability to just do it all day like you would want,
yep, then I could get on board.
Because it was great. So my Monday, I had a doctor's appointment, so I just had to take a day anyway. And then my son had to go to the DMV, so he had to get his permit. I didn't expect to be like a 2.5 hour ordeal, and it was. So I was just kind of grumpy because I was supposed to be home by 10, and I didn't get home till 11:30. But then it's it went really well. There was an hour break. I want to say, was it after round 10 or there was somewhere?
Yeah. Yep. After 10,
it was hot. So I went outside. I swam in the pool. I drank a bunch of beer. And then boom, came back in. And so I actually think that I prefer that.
Okay.
Two-day draft. I do know that kind of and I never thought of this, and I probably feel like we should have collectively come to this conclusion that the draft is going to be set up different because there was not this giant break after round 10.
Yep.
And so teams had to, on the fly, figure things out. Or I think what happened was they had to have a much more concrete plan going into day one and day two than to be able to say, okay, here's what we're going to do in the top 10 rounds.
Yep.
And then we're going to adjust after that. So I do think that it was better from a baseball sense, the way that it worked, because it didn't allow teams to really have more time to structure a plan, which manipulates how the whole draft process works, if that makes sense.
Yep. It does make sense. It makes perfect sense. Yeah. It was, you're probably right. It probably was rooted mostly in FOMO. And then today, life hit me hard when I woke up and one of my eyes was mostly swollen shut. And then it is July 16th. And I was sitting outside in 55-degree weather in the rain, watching my kid play his last baseball game of the season. So it was a quick turnaround, but I'm excited to dig in and do some review with you, man, because
this will be fun.
It was a really fascinating draft. We have to do the housekeeping stuff first. So let's hop right into that. Ways that you can support the show. Liking and subscribing on your preferred podcast platform of choice. I do want to give a shout out to the YouTube. The handle there is @Destination the Show. If you want to send us questions, which people have continued to send us awesome questions, we really appreciate those. Easiest way is social media, Twitter @DTS_pod1 or Blue Sky. The handle there is @Destination the Show. Or you can shoot us an email, destinationtheshow@gmail.com. Got to finish, Jeremy, with a thank you. We did a live stream event for day one. we cleared 5 hours of talking through 105 picks, I believe. And we also cleared our numbers from the 2024 draft. So that live streams had 1,300 views so far, I want to say, which is about 30% up from our inaugural event last year. And so just super appreciate anyone who took the time to tune into that, whether it was for 2 minutes or 2 hours or the whole thing, and join in with the coverage. Give your comments, give your takes, ask your questions. It was really a lot of fun, especially when the first round got up and running and got going. I think there's a point there, which I'd forgotten about, where it's like between like after comp B into round 2, where people in the chat are starting to tell you the picks because suddenly everything speeds up. And I was like, suddenly my board is a mess and I have no idea what's going on. But the stream was super fun, man.
Yeah. I when I saw the numbers of the live viewers, I was kind of caught off guard because I didn't feel like the numbers were near that last year.
Yeah.
And what's really weird is I stream for, announcing high school sports. Like, it's not uncommon to see numbers. I mean, the most that we've had view at one time, I think, for a game that I streamed was like well over 2,000. And we were not anywhere near that, right? At a single time. But I saw the number and like there was a little bit of nerves that kicked in.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's weird.
Better know your stuff, buddy.
Right. And it's like when there's 2,000 people watching a high school football game, like you just have to talk about what's happening. And it's like here things are happening in a hurry, but you don't necessarily know what the next thing's going to be and how that impacts the next thing. And it was different. So it was fun. Guests were great.
Yeah, they were.
Having Matt and Spence on was huge. Spencer's very knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Like impressively knowledgeable. And then True Blood's True Blood, right? I mean, put him on anywhere to talk about baseball, and he's going to give you good content.
Yeah, it was so fun, and we have not discussed this, but I think we will plan on doing that again next year. And I'll drop my early hot take: 2026 draft has the chance, I think, to be the best one since we've been doing the show, even better than 2023 with that super deep first round and that big top 5. So that could make me look very stupid in a few months, but I want people to be excited about it. And so the 2026 class is shaping up both like prep and college to be super, super interesting. Okay, well, let's get into it, dude. So here's the format of how we're going to go about this. We kind of touch on and cover, at least tangentially, 6 teams here. So I will kind of reel off the first 5 rounds of picks for these teams. We'll go one at a time. We'll spend some time digging in, most likely on the first pick or 2. And then we'll potentially each pick a favorite guy or a guy who we think is intriguing from day 2. The funny thing about this is I always think of this as like your day 3 hidden gems, but it's now your day 2 hidden gems. Right. So I'm probably going to mess that up at least once. So we'll start with the team that we touch on who was picking the highest, which is the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, all of the talk and all of the conjecture, Jeremy, leading up to the draft have been it's either college pitcher or prep shortstop. And there were some interesting decisions made ahead of the Blue Jays. We had Eli Willits 1, Tyler Bremen 2, Kate Anderson, Ethan Holiday, Liam Doyle, Seth Hernandez, and Iva Arquette, which put the Blue Jays on the clock at 8 with an interesting choice, a cluster of prep shortstops at their disposal. Jamie Arnold was on the board. Kyson Witherspoon was on the board. They went with JoJo Parker out of Purvis High School in Mississippi, 6'2", 200, left-handed hitting. What do you make of the Blue Jays selection at 8, and how do you feel like the board played out in front of them and set them up?
Right. And I think, obviously the way that the first 2 picks went off was surprising.
Yep.
Ultimately, when it got to the Blue Jays at 8, I think they were probably left with the choice that they hoped that they would get to make.
Yeah.
Because I think Arnold or Parker or Arnold was kind of where we always were with that pick. And they went with Parker, which kind of took me by surprise. But I mean, the chances that you're going to get the best hitter out of the draft I mean, that's a real thing. Does he stick
Yep.
at shortstop? I guess we're not certain about that. Um, but the bat is something to dream on, and the ceiling is super high. And Toronto is kind of one of those teams that, like, they've shown the ability to be in the playoffs where they wouldn't get these picks,
Yep.
and then they've shown the ability to be not real good. But I think in my just my opinion, like, JoJo Parker could be great, right?
Hmm.
And when you can do that with a hitter that can impact your lineup every single day, uh, I don't want to make a Bobby Witt comparison, but Bobby Witt for the Royals impacts that Royals team every single day, and JoJo Parker has that sort of ceiling. So I'm not going to complain on that Blue Jays pick at all. I would have loved JoJo Parker to be drafted by my favorite team.
Yeah, for sure. And so I do want to, one thing I'll add about Parker, and it's interesting that they settled on a prep bat. It's also notable which one they took, because there were several available to them right immediately after they took Parker. Steele Hall went to the Reds. Billy Carlson went to the White Sox. Daniel Pierce went to the Rays a few picks later. So it wasn't like JoJo Parker was the one prep bat left available to them. They had to pick a four who were kind of at least talked about in that range. And I couldn't agree more. I think this is one of the most sure you can feel about a hit tool in this draft class. So JoJo Parker, a great fit at 8. Just to reel through some of their other notable picks, I took Jake Cook, an outfielder out of Southern Mississippi, with the 81st overall pick. Cook is a really fascinating one. It is freak tools with almost no power, but we're talking 80 grade speed plus arm plus defense in center field plus contact ability. Like, it could be plus everything except 35 grade power. And so that's an interesting one. It's also notable, I think, and worth calling out what you hinted at, which was they picked 8th, then 81st. That is a huge gap.
Uh-huh.
Micah Bucknam, they took in the 4th round. Right-handed pitcher out of Dallas Baptist. Tim Piacentine, a Canadian prep third baseman. He was getting quite a lot of love. They took him in the 5th. So those were their notable picks, Jeremy. Anyone in those middle rounds or on day 2 that particularly caught your eye for the Blue Jays?
So I do think, what they did late in the top 10, early on day 2, is they took 5th-year senior in the 8th round, senior in the 9th round, senior in the 10th round, which it opens up that pool. So you have to, kind of under the assumption that those 2 college guys that they took in rounds 3 and 4 probably don't sign for slot. They turn around and take a higher rated college senior in round 11, but then turn around then and take a prep in Blaine Ballard, who MLB had ranked at 120 in round 12. So I do think that they're going to stretch that bonus pool to get, like you said, they had one pick in the top 75, 2 picks in the top 100. And I don't have your board sorted by drafting team, but they ended up drafting 4 guys in MLB's top 160. Or excuse me, 6 guys in MLB's top 160. And so I do think, like, if they can find a way to get Blaine Ballard signed, Parker, the Canadian that you mentioned, and then a couple pitchers that are higher ranked. Like, I think their draft looks pretty good. I'm curious to see what Parker comes in at. He wasn't really projected to go much higher than 9, but he had suitors all over the place where I think he could have probably kind of helped himself float to whatever destination was, looked the best to him. And so I think that's kind of the pick that makes it. But, getting some other preps and finding some, Canadian, the pitcher from New Zealand that went to Dallas Baptist, like, they spread their resources around well to get more guys than maybe it looked like they could get based on their draft order.
Yeah. And, one trap I try and avoid in doing these kind of recap pods is just saying, Well, Baltimore Orioles draft was awesome, obviously, because they had like a gazillion picks in the top 60 and $19 million of bonus pool money. And so trying to parse through that, we admitted and we said that the Blue Jays didn't have a ton of picks and money to work with. I don't love this class overall. I do like taking a swing on Jarrett Spencer in the 11th. We talked about him a little bit as a senior sign. Just terrible luck for him this year. He transferred to UT from Indiana State. He blew out his arm towards the end of the season. He was having an absolutely tremendous year for the Longhorns. It's like potentially a reliever here, right? But the fastball from the left side sitting 93 to 96, touching 98, maintaining that velo deep into games. Really good sweeper in the mix too, and just super unfortunate for him that he, kind of bet on himself, went back as a senior, and had that outcome. And I think that's going to be a big what if for Toronto. Like, will he recover from that injury? But if he does, Jared Spencer absolutely is major league arm talent in the 11th round, albeit on the older side.
So he falls there because he's going to have to be paid over slot, right? I mean, slot at round 11 is different, but he's going to have to get money or return to.
He's a fourth year senior. He's already 22, and so I don't think he really has much in the way of leverage, right? I think he's turning 23. He is turning 23. Or he just turned 22, it looks like. July 1st birthday.
I was just curious if he had some other injury stuff that would allow him to play again.
I don't think so.
Not so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that could be an interesting pick. So that plus a high school prep outfielder in round 12.
Yep.
I mean, let's see. And obviously, like, we can talk more about this, and we have, like, when you look back at a draft, like, what makes that draft successful, right?
Major leaguers.
How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, like that, and that's where this becomes a thing, right? JoJo Parker, you picked 8th overall. You better make it to the major leagues. Yep. But literally anybody else that the Blue Jays draft here, starting at pick 81 and on, making the major leagues would be an upset.
Yep.
So I think that the context of that, I think, is a big deal, because Jake Cook would have to beat some odds to be a successful, like a reliable major league player. You may get a cup of coffee, but anybody after, basically anybody after comp round B, the chances are just not as likely. So I think that's something that needs to be remembered when you talk about these classes too. The likelihood that anybody but JoJo Parker make it to the majors is just not a great chance.
Yep. Okay, let's shoot down the first round order, and we're going to talk about the Padres briefly. We'll focus more on the top of their class, another team who they picked at 25 and didn't pick again until 99. And so I think they were the third smallest bonus pool overall. I think the conversation, every time we had a mock draft conversation about the Padres, we said, when we get to their pick at 25, just make a list of the highest ranked preps there, and one of them's going to San Diego. And indeed, for the 9th consecutive season, Jeremy, that is exactly what happened. They take Cruz Schoolcraft, out of Sunset High School in Oregon, 6'8", 230-pound left-handed pitcher. Fastball's been up to 97, kind of two-plane slider in the low 80s, and a good feel for a changeup, relatively smooth, repeatable delivery for someone so ginormous. What do you make of the Schoolcraft pick for the Padres at 25, other than predictable?
Yeah, I mean, that is their class. This is the success of the Padres class is going to depend on the high upside arm of Schoolcraft, right? I mean, he went 25th. I'm guessing he's going to take more than slot money to sign. And you mentioned, so slot is 3.6. I'm guessing that's not going to get it done. But you mentioned how small their pool was. Right. There's just not going to be a lot of money to do anything else. So, they're going to get some organizational depth, some lottery ticket types. They took
so many seniors.
Eyeballing this, yeah, their picks in round 6, 7, and 8 were 5th-year seniors. Picks in 9 and 10 were 4-year seniors. They took 4 more 4-year seniors between rounds 11 and 20.
Yep.
So that class is 100% about depth. They took 1, 2, 3 high school guys total.
Yep.
2 guys that are listed as catchers, and then Schoolcraft. So I do think that the success of this draft is 100% on Crew Schoolcraft. High ceiling, low floor. Let's see what happens.
Yep. A couple of other Padres picks to call out just to keep things interesting here. I want to touch on third rounder Ryan Weidman. Some of the best tools in the entire draft out of Western Kentucky. 6'5", 215. How about this for a line from his 2025 season? He hit 398, 466, 652 with 10 home runs and 45 stolen bases. Walked 8% of the time, struck out 16% of the time. So some really great production there from Weidman. His chase rate is also north of 40%. Literally swings and everything. So there's obviously some work to do on the approach there. The other guy I'll call out quick for the Padres is Michael Salina out of St. Bonaventure. Some of the most electric stuff in the entire draft. Fastball sits 98. It's been up to 102. He also had an arm injury this year that put him out for the season, so he's going to go into the Padres system rehabbing. But again, if you are short on picks and money, that's the kind of gamble I understand taking, where you can get some serious upside potentially if you're willing to tolerate the risk of a rehabbing player. Okay, let's move on. Next, we're going to talk about the Boston Red Sox. So the Red Sox, as just to set the stage here before we get some of your takes here, Jeremy, the Red Sox did acquire this extra pick at 33 in the Quinn Priester trade with the Milwaukee Brewers. At 15, they took Oklahoma right-handed pitcher Kyson Witherspoon, Tennessee right-handed flamethrower Marcus Phillips at 33, Henry Godbout, a contact-oriented hit-over power hitter out of Virginia in Comp 2. In the third round, they took your guy, Anthony Ianson, right-handed pitcher out of LSU. In the fourth round, they took power-hitting shortstop out of Arizona, Mason White. And then in the fifth round, right-handed pitcher, Christian Fauch out of Arkansas. What did you think of the Red Sox haul on day one? What did you think about the Witherspoon pick? Anything you want to dig into there?
Yeah, I think the Red Sox took a ton of pitchers overall. That's kind of been their strategy.
Yeah, they did.
Witherspoon at 10 was I wouldn't say necessarily a great value pick, but
15, you mean?
Yeah, excuse me, at 15.
Yep.
Decent value pick, given that Bremner was way off the board.
Yep.
The other college pitchers went off the board. I like that pick for them. And then Ianson was one of my favorite guys. I thought comp round, and then he falls to round 3, which is going to be a steal for them. So
yep.
I know you were higher on Phillips.
I like Phillips a lot.
In my mind, I mean, they got 3 really good pitchers.
Yep.
Prospects anyway, that who knows how it works out. Different types of guys too, but good athletes. And we'll see. We'll kind of see, but I do like what they've done in adding to their stable of pitchers. They had 3 of the top, probably 5 hitting prospects in all baseball coming into this year.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that that's what these 3 guys are going to be pitching wise in baseball, but Witherspoon, Phillips, and Ianson as a trio, I think anybody will be pretty good about coming out of the draft with those 3 arms.
Yeah, 100%. I like all of those picks for the reasons you kind of illuminated. I think you've got a diverse cluster of arms, and I do think it's notable and different that they're leaning into college performers from like the best schools and conferences in the country, right? Marcus Phillips, Tennessee. Relief risk, yes, but he also has absolutely electric stuff. I think if there's any way you can find for him to be a starter, you're looking at some serious impact potentially. And worst case scenario, or I guess let's put that differently, the worst best case scenario, Like if he makes it, but it doesn't pan out as a starter, you have a back end relief guy. Ianson, high floored pick. I think there's some fastball shape stuff to do there. Maybe they'll add a sinker with him or something else to get around bad fastball shape. And then Kyson Witherspoon, I think, was widely mocked, except by us, where he slid in our mock draft, was widely mocked inside the top 10. And so it just feels like solid value, honestly, getting him at 15. And like what you said is true. Like that is a hitter heavy farm system, particularly at the top. So an interesting strategy for them. And I do think maybe a little bit of a departure and leading into that even more. Any other picks for the Red Sox that caught your eye or that you liked in particular, or final thoughts on them before we move to the Chicago Cubs?
No, I think it was pretty run of the mill.
Yeah.
They took a JC guy in round 11, but I mean a prep guy in round 19. Otherwise, it was college guys and mostly college juniors. So I think they're going to try to play this pretty close to the cap. Craig Breslow, pretty smart dude. Calling the shots over there. I do think there's been some Twins personnel that are migrated that way.
Yep.
And so going heavy on pitchers makes sense. I mean, if you the thing that I come back to quite a bit, like if you find a Byron Buxton type, right? Been injured, but that scenario is if you can keep a guy for the duration of his career, like you get a position player and it's 10, 12 years, right? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the top of the line here, right? But you could think about with every team, but when you talk about pitchers, like the turnover on those guys, it's just so fast, right? Yep. The Clayton Kershaws of the world are very few and far between. Yep. And so, if the shelf life on a pitcher is 4 or 5 years, and the shelf life on a hitting prospect is 10 to 12, and you're bringing up Roman Anthony and Christian Campbell, like you're having these guys, like you can kind of pass on hitters, right, to add more pitching depth. So I think that's kind of where they're at. And they added they drafted 6 hitters and jeepers, 15 pitchers. Like, yep. Very, very tilted toward the pitching side. And I think that's why it's like you just got to find these guys and hopefully a couple work out. And if they don't work as starters, they work as relievers. So I think they had a fine draft, and it'll really, how high can these arms take them, and we'll really see, because I think there's some upside there for sure.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the Chicago Cubs. I want to spend another team, Jeremy, like the Blue Jays and like the Padres, who we've also talked about quite a bit, who just don't have picks and money. They never do. And so I want to spend a little bit of time on their first pick. They come up on the board at 17. And we know now that they ended up taking Wake Forest outfielder Ethan Conrad, who had missed 2/3 of the season after a surgery related to his labrum. I'm just going to walk through some other available names who may have been a fit, and then we'll get your take on Conrad. So other guys still on the board at that time: Ike Irish, Andrew Fisher, Wahiva Aloy, Jace Laviolette, and then from the prep ranks, Xavier Nyans still on the board. Pardon me, Kason Cunningham still on the board. They end up going with Conrad, 6'3", 220 pounds. Like I said, missed a chunk of the season due to injury. I'm just recapping his numbers. In his one season at Wake, right after transferring from D2 Marist, he only played 21 games. Within those 21 games, 372, 495, 744, a 167 WRC plus, 7 home runs, an 18% walk rate, and a 14% strikeout rate, with a good record on the Cape too. What's your take on the Cubs pick here of Conrad?
I mean, it came as a surprise. Came as a surprise to me. Okay. But all of the stuff after suggested how much they really liked him. And
Yeah.
I think it's easy to see that. It's just harder to understand with a pretty brief track record.
Yep.
And so we had talked about Conrad before as kind of the one guy that's been injured. How do you really feel about him? They do have, the other thing is they're pretty loaded with outfield prospects.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it's a draft for need type thing, but could they have, with their limited assets in the draft, done something different? Because it wasn't just Conrad, but Kepley's not really a high ceiling dude. Dominic Reed was an interesting choice in round 3. They went back prep in round 4 and round 6.
Yep. And we'll talk about those guys in a second.
But yeah, so like, what's the upside of this draft for the Cubs?
I don't like. I know they have limited picks, right? And so that part I get. But I do personally think this follows a Cubs trend in recent seasons, which we talked a little bit about on the live stream, which seems to be we're going to take a college guy, but we're also going to lean into some elevated risk from that college guy. So if we rewind to Cam Smith, now he was the best player on our board available by a ton, but Cam Smith was not like a super safe, high floor college guy. He was a guy who some people said, we hate his swing. We do not think this is going to work. He chases too much, XYZ, ABC. They seem to lean into like slightly more volatile versions of the college profile. And this is what Conrad is to me. Like, I think you and I both agree that if he had had that type of production for the entire season, he would have been a lock top 10 pick. But 21 games, you didn't see him in conference play. He did most of his hitting at home against a poor non-conference slate. And so, he does have a good Cape track record, but I do think, like, if Conrad doesn't work out in this class, then who's your impact major league guy? It's not Kepley, in my opinion. I just don't.
Right.
I don't know that I'm excited about enough of the additional picks beyond their prepsters in rounds 4 and round 6. That I'm worried, like, and they've hit on their college guy the past couple of years, but what happens when they don't, I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, and your point too was, if Conrad does what he does over the full season, he's a top 10 pick. Great. If Conrad plays the entire season and is less of what he was, he doesn't go in the first round.
Yep.
Right. So the volatility on that is pretty significant. And your point that you made is 100% true. Like, where does the impact come? And I just don't know where it comes from. Yep. And that becomes a problem. Like, 4 outfielders in the top 6 picks, and then mostly pitchers. 2 guys drafted as a catcher, and then a prep third baseman that probably won't sign at round 19. Like, it's going to be all pitchers. But they also have, they came in the year with 6 top 100 prospects.
Yep.
So they have the assets at that range to deal in the event that they need to make a move here in the next couple of weeks.
Which I'm hoping they do. I hope, we talked about this in the offseason when we're more focused on prospects. I hope the Cubs aggressively pursue starting pitching. I think they need it. Brewers are hot on their tail. They need more impact in their rotation. I do want to touch on with the Cubs. I love their round 4 and 6 picks. Both of these prep guys are guys I was pretty fond of coming into this draft. Albeit, we're talking about major league impact. These guys are more projects. Round 4, they take Caleb Wing out of Scotts Valley High School in California. Prep righty, 6'2", 100, really projectable frame. He's just like an elite mover. He's extremely athletic. He moves really well. The fastball's been up to 95. It's kind of a power curveball and a burgeoning changeup, but he's just like a supremely talented athlete, in my opinion. He's a good strike thrower. I like the Caleb Wing pick a lot. He's a guy I think will be a slow burn, but is interesting. Josiah Hartshorn, I think, is a guy who could have gone much higher had things panned out a little bit differently for him. Switch hitter, left-handed throwing outfielder out of Orange Lutheran High School. he struggled with like nagging injuries a lot. So, and each one of his nagging injuries impacted him swinging from a particular side of the plate. So he had like
Right.
a back thing that prevented him swinging left-handed. Then he had a shoulder thing that prevented him swinging right-handed. And so I think he got like out of rhythm and out of lock on both of his swings at various times. But that was one of the challenges he had. But this spring was back to hitting from both sides. Good approach. Controls the strike zone well. Can get to good raw power from both sides of the plate. So Hartshorn is another guy who I think is a good athlete, 6'2", 220. I like both of those prep picks in addition to Conrad. But outside of those, this draft did not excite me overly
So
much.
I forgot I was reading about that Hartshorn, and he was a right-handed hitter exclusively until he hurt his elbow.
Yeah.
Left elbow. Couldn't swing, so he turned around, batted left-handed then exclusively until he hurt his back. And so I mean that's a profile that you got to think there's some upside, because it's
100%.
like the pitcher that hasn't thrown a ton. Here we're talking about a hitter that's a hitter that hasn't really hit a ton. So the question that I'm going to ask him, and maybe you don't have an answer, the Cubs should be looking to buy in the deadline.
I would say
there used to be a certain time period in between being signing and being able to be traded. Like I think it was like the Pete and Cavalier rule.
Yeah.
Then when Trey Turner that was drafted and traded right away, or I think it was Trey Turner. He was drafted and then was going to be involved in a trade, but he had to be a player to be named later because there was like a 6-month or whatever waiting period. I feel like they changed that in the CBA. Like, how quickly are these guys that, do you know? Like,
I don't.
Like it's not long anymore, right?
I don't, and there's the Twins example, I think, right? I think that came into play with the Sonny Gray Chase Petty trade, where that was like the soonest they could trade Chase Petty was when they ended up actually moving him. So I don't know. I'm also, if my old brain serves correct, I think they altered that too, but I'm not 100% sure. So that's going to be a research project for us. However, different topic for a different day. I still think the Cubs have a window to trade some of their high minors hitters before that situation gets too crowded, and or some of them get post prospect hype. Like Owen Casey was on an absolute heater prior to the deadline. I want to say he hit 2 home runs in 3 consecutive games. Like, move some of those guys that you have up there in AAA, because you're not doing Casey and Alcantara and Bias. Like, you're not doing all those guys. So move somebody along.
Right. And there was talk on the side at one point. I don't know whose rumor it was, like Joe Ryan matching up with the Cubs and Owen Casey being that type of thing. It obviously would have to be more, but like, is that a thing? Like, that makes sense that the Cubs would want Joe Ryan.
Sure.
Owen Casey, not really the profile that I like for the Twins, but how good is Joe Ryan?
Joe Ryan is so good, and I've seen a lot of absolutely ridiculous drivel-filled trade proposals, especially coming from the East Coast in the last few weeks. Outrageous.
Because Midwest teams should just give their players up.
Right. Okay. Moving on, we're going to talk about the Milwaukee Brewers. We're probably going to spend a little bit more time on the Brewers because it may not come as a surprise to anyone. The Brewers were one of my 3 favorite drafts in 2025. And there's much to talk about. First round, pick 20, they took Tennessee corner infield bat Andrew Fisher. They followed that up with a compensation pick that they used on Brady Ebel out of Corona High School. They took Vanderbilt lefty J.D. Thompson in the second round. New Jersey prepster Frank Chiron in Comp B. They took Jacob Morrison, super tall starter from Coastal, in the third. Josh Flores, an Indiana right-handed high school pitcher in the 4th. Sean, Episcope out of Princeton in the 5th. Daniel Dickinson, who was ranked like 80 on the consensus board, all the way at 185th in the 6th. So before we deal with the end and the middle and end part of their draft, let's talk about the top. Andrew Fisher to the Brewers, I feel like is the one thing that you and I have been talking about for months that really came to pass. Like, does that surprise? It seems like a perfect fit to me. And yet some Brewers fans, like Spencer, was not super excited about that. I think it's a great fit. I think he's a lock to be a productive major league hitter. What do you make of the Fisher fit at 20?
Yeah, I mean, it's the fit that we all expected, but it's not that super exciting profile, right?
Sure.
Um,
What is not exciting about it though? Is it the lack of defense? Like, is the lack of supplementary tools?
Yeah, well, I think when you've gone to the same well and taking a third base type over and over and over and over and over again, and now you take a third base type who's probably going to be a first baseman, right? You think about the Brewers drafts of the last handful of years, and it's like they take Cooper Pratt, and you're like, oh my God, how are they going to do that? Yeah. Right? You take a 102-mile-an-hour guy from the JC that takes 5 games to be an all-star. Like, there's some very exciting things that they've done. Plus,
but getting your Fisher is how you get those guys.
Right. But that's the thing. Like, the first pick in those drafts have not been super exciting picks, right? And so the difference for me and for you in this draft was that they didn't go back to that prep well like they had in the past. Chiron was not even someone that was even on your board.
Oh, dude, Chiron was like top 110 on my board for sure.
Okay, so yeah. a little bit lower in pick 68.
105, excuse me.
Okay, so they took Ebel, they took him, Flores, and then they kind of stayed away from the prep ranks. They did get back to it with Cooper Underwood.
They did get back to and Vacinovich out of Bloomington West, which is exciting.
8. So they did some things that were very like typical Brewer things.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the sure things are in this draft, right?
Sure. So I think Fisher is a sure thing. I like Fisher. Here's my take on Fisher. I'm pulling up his report. I don't know why I didn't have it open. I like Fisher more than I liked Wilkin, and I like Fisher more than I like Blake Burke. And Brewers Twitter is in love with Blake Burke, so no one is going to agree with that, and that's fine. But just Fisher's metrics are just off the chain. He walked 21% of the time. Like, everything is hit hard in the air. He's absolutely masterful at it. So I personally think Fisher is a sure thing. Let me get back to the tracker here. I do want to talk about Chiron too, and I just a quick point on him. So he was a Coastal commit. Spencer pointed this out on the live stream that they had to be sure about his signability, and all the indications are he's going to sign, because they would lose that pick.
Right.
And not get a compensation for that, because that was already compensation for Chris Lavonis. So funny that they took another New Jersey prep arm there. But I think Chiron's ranking is faded a bit just because he's a cold weather arm.
Okay, but stop, because Lavonis was the same thing and way more highly regarded.
Yeah, but okay, that's fine. But for every Lavonis and every, who's the other guy they took out of
Message?
Bryce Message, thank you. He has like a bunch of cousins coming up. For every Lavonis and for every Message, who did I talk about as a prep catching prospect? I would like the Twins to be interested in. Michael Oliveto. Where did he go? 36 to the Tigers, and he's ranked 110. And so I think there's some recency bias there in saying, okay, but like, you can be a cold weather arm or a cold weather prep prospect and still be famous and still be ranked highly on boards. That's true. But there are also examples that are underranked or only get pushed up towards the end, Like Miguel Sime is another example who got taken by the Nationals in like the 4th round, who throws like 101. He's out of New York, and he was barely on board on like Pipeline's board and other boards until the end of the cycle. So I do think there's some guys who get a little bit suppressed. But let me ask you about this. If we look at the Brewers rounds 11 through 20,
Okay.
that's 10 picks. They took 8 high school players. So I want to dig in on this with you for a few minutes because I have a theory cooking about it, and I just like, why? No one does this. Every other team loads up on college players here.
They took one college player. The other guy was JC.
There's a JC, there's 1 college player, and there's 8 high schoolers out of 10 picks, where $150,000. I think it may have gone up actually. We'll just say something.
I thought it was 150. Is that not anymore?
I thought someone said it went up.
Potentially.
Let's call it 150,000. 150,000 is the max you can spend without going into your bonus pool. They took 80% high school players. Why do you think they did this? No one else is doing that. They're the only team that is leaning into this to this degree. They did it last year too, and we're like, well, that's weird. They took so many high schoolers on day 2. Nope, they've done it again. What's the deal?
You want my honest theory?
I do.
So when the draft was 40 rounds, teams would sign 32 to 36 guys, right? The guys that they wouldn't sign a lot of times would be prep guys. And so if you're going to draft 40 guys and sign 32 of them, and you're not going to be able to sign 8 prep guys, the college guys that you like on the old day 3, there's so many of them, right? Yep. And so like the one thing when I talked to Sean way back, he's like, our board is much shorter.
Yeah.
It includes way fewer names than you think.
Because you just have tiers after a while.
Right. And so like when it becomes to round 12, nobody's taking our guy.
Right.
When it becomes to round 30, definitely nobody's taking our guy.
Right.
So what 29 teams are doing is they're drafting their guys, their college guys, and they're signing them. The Brewers are just like, let's not even draft those guys. We'll take prep guys. We'll see how the money plays out. And if there's arms that we want to add, we'll do it through free agency, where all of these round 21 through 40 guys, the old guys, are all available. How many guys are signed? They're signed right away. And so you can be more kind of choosy on who you want to bring in. You don't have to do it right away. You can let those guys play in the summer leagues that they're playing in, and then go find those guys. So I think their timeline's just a little bit different. And if you can, which you can do with it might just be the JC guys now, like the old draft and follow, where you can kind of sit on it, and if the deadline passes, it passes. So it's just it's a different kind of mode of aggressiveness.
Yep.
And the crazy thing was they signed a bunch of those guys. So if they have that money and are willing to go into the tax, which they've done, I think it helps extend that pool. You're still limited by how many minor league guys you can employ, right?
Yep.
Which is different. So you don't have to have these enormous classes, because you'll bring these guys up, through the Dominican League, which, by the way, the Brewers have had really, really good prospects come through the Dominican League.
Ridiculous.
So when you have more guys that you bring stateside, because I think you're limited to like 180 domestic prospects.
Yep.
That you can just do things differently here. So they're leaning into a different type of aggressiveness.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see, are they going to sign more than a couple of these guys?
So Raup has already agreed. So their 17th round pick, who was committed to South Carolina. I saw that because there was a bunch of irate South Carolina fans because their program's not in great shape, and I think they only have 3 incoming freshmen committed now. But that's the other thing I wanted to point out is I also think the Brewers show like a ton of nous when it comes to their homework on signability. Like I really think this is their little drafting inefficiency. They're like, we are going to lock in on more volatile guys who are way, way younger, who we can get in our pitching development machine way, way earlier. And we know they're exceptional at pitching development, especially within the parameters that they tend to churn out, like hot, good guys with an affinity for spin. And I think they do their homework to the point where they nail the signability, and we'll see. And maybe we'll come back to this after the deadline, which is on the 28th. We'll see how many guys they take, and we'll take a look at how that compares to last year. But I'm really interested to keep track of this year over year as just a different approach. And if anyone else buys into this as a, like, we want to target and take more high upside guys because we believe, one, in our ability to get them to sign and identify those guys, and two, in our player development so much that we think getting more prep players in the system and getting more of a youth movement is beneficial to our system long term in producing impact major league talent. Not just like major league talent, but like impactful guys.
So last year in rounds 11 through 20, they took 7 high school seniors and were able to sign 3 of them.
Okay.
All for, well, what, 535, 665, 852.
So like half to 750,000.
Yep. And then they were unable to sign 4 high school guys and a college guy.
Okay.
And so I think that's the thing, right? So if you can even ballpark it and say, okay, these are some guys that, like, let's take a couple guys that would sign for $300,000. Let's take a couple guys that would sign for $600,000. Let's take a couple guys that would sign for this. And then when we determine where our top 10 guys sign, then we can see what we have left. And if they don't take it, they don't take it.
Yep. But to finish on my Brewers thing, you asked where's the impact coming from? I think Fisher is a high probability major leaguer. J.D. Thompson is a high probability major leaguer. I think Jacob Morrison is a high probability major leaguer. And I think Daniel Dickinson is a high probability major leaguer. And so, not to say they're going to be like the most impactful, but Dickinson does a little bit of everything well, maybe a utility role. I think they do a really nice job of matching. Here are 3 or 4 profiles we think or have a higher probability of breaking in with the type of higher impact potential talent that they know how to develop better than most organizations in the league. Let's move on. We've talked enough about the Brewers. Last but not least, Minnesota Twins. Okay, quick recap here. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. Round 1, pick 16 overall. They took Marek Houston, Wake Forest shortstop. Round 2, 36 in Comp A. They took Riley Quick, right-handed pitcher out of Alabama, 6'6", 255. Second round, 54th overall, they took Quentin Young. That is the nephew of Delman. Also 6'6", 225, high school senior. James Ellwanger in the third round, 6'4", 205 out of Dallas Baptist. Jason Reitz in the fourth round at 119, 6'11", 215. We're going to have to do a whole section on Jason Reitz. I won't do all of these, but a couple of other notables. Fifth round, Matt Barr. We should talk about him, 6'6", 195. The best JUCO prospect in the entire draft. And then they went on their usual run of college, mostly right-handed pitchers throughout the mid to later rounds with a couple of other interesting picks, including Bruin Agbayani in round 6, a prep shortstop out of Hawaii, controls the strike zone well, very hitterish type of profile there. Let's start with Marek Houston. We're a couple of days down the road now. What are your thoughts on this pick? Like it or not so much? What do you think?
So, I mean, if you watch the stream, you knew right away I wasn't a huge fan. And that is partially because when we talked throughout the whole process about the shortstop demographic, not necessarily the high school or the pro, like there was just so many high upside shortstops that Marek Houston wasn't near the top of them, right? So mostly preps, had a lot of guys that we like prep wise. I like Pierce. You didn't love Pierce. We all kind of had our favorites, and Marek Houston just wasn't that. But, I was asked afterwards, like, well, what's a good comp for him is Noah Miller a good comp? And I'm like, no, it's not a good comp because Noah Miller can't hit at all, and Marek Houston can hit. And obviously, Noah Miller's a stud shortstop, defensive wizard. Marek Houston's going to be there, right? So, as a floor with lesser of a glove, sure, Noah Miller's fine. But I'm like, if Houston can't hit well enough to be an everyday shortstop, like he's going to be a good enough fielder with enough other skills that he could play second. He probably has the arm to play third. He has the legs and arm to play center, right? He could be a utility guy if he needed to be. And it's like, well, then is Castro a good comp? It's like somewhere in the range of outcomes, fine. Willie Castro is a comp. But I think Marek Houston put on weight, put on strength, hit more home runs, still walks a ton, or at least enough to like offset the strikeouts. He walks more.
He walks a lot. Yep.
So like there's still upside there where I think, and it's like you hate comparisons and I get why, right? Because to say, he has pull power. Well, then it's like when you talk about a middle infielder that comes in as a non-power hitter that all of a sudden has pull power, who's the name that gets thrown out?
I don't know.
Right? Brian Dozier, and then he has 40 home runs. And so it's like these things aren't fair, right? But Brian Dozier was a light-hitting middle infielder, played shortstop at Southern Miss, I think has moved to second base. So there's Noah Miller, there's Willie Castro, there's Brian Dozier. Like,
how about Dansby Swanson minus a full grade of power?
And that's the other name. And I'm like, so Dansby Swanson is a name with less power. And then I'm like, well, if you take the 80 grade or 70 grade speed and knock it down to 55, which is a significant step, right? Don't get me wrong. But like, is there Trey Turner in there? And it's like, so now you have all of these names, right? And it's like the reality is the Twins at pick 16 took a guy who could very well be an everyday major league shortstop and maybe not hit first or third or fourth or fifth, but potentially could hit second.
Yeah.
Right. And at the very worst could at least be like a catalyst for the end of the lineup when it turns around. And so I think there's certainly upside there. Did I love the pick at the time? I didn't. Would I have preferred other names? Absolutely. But I didn't love the Keelan Culpepper pick. And I was certainly wrong about that.
Yeah.
And so I do think that given how the rest of night one played out, and then given how day two played out, that when we see how this bonus pool all comes together, I think we're just going to overall grade this draft highly.
Yep.
As Marek Houston, a very important part of it.
Yeah, fair. And I think I feel similarly to you. And I think for me, it's actually more. So there's two parts to it. I think there's some internal bias against supplementary tools. Like I am less personally excited by how defense accrues value than how power accrues value. That's why I find Andrew Fisher fun because he hits huge tanks. And Marek Houston doesn't do that. I also just personally have my doubts about the offensive profile, and I'm super willing to be wrong. That'd be great because there's a really strong overall skill set. The bat to ball skills are good. He walked 15.4% of the time. He struck out 15.4% of the time. There's not a ton of swing and miss. He doesn't. He chases like a tick below an average amount. The exit velos are not that exciting to me. If you are convinced you can layer more strength on there, maybe. He's certainly added on 4 home runs freshman, 8 home runs as a sophomore, 15 as a junior. Right. And we know that the Twins value, this kind of adjusted improvement. Like we want to see year over year improvement. And so I think we said this a lot, like regardless of who they would take with their first pick, like you have earned the benefit of the doubt. Right. Your recent track record, I think, is like 4 or 5 top 100 guys that they've kind of produced. And by that, I mean like not Walker Jenkins, who waltzes into a top 15.
100%.
And so let's see. I think we're going to get a look at Houston quickly. I think he'll get to Fort Myers in August, and we'll get our first test, right? And the test will be, if he's great, he might get 10 games at Cedar Rapids because they're going to be in the playoffs. If he is passable, he'll most likely still start 2026 at Cedar Rapids. So we should at least get a look at him relatively soon.
The other thing that's interesting is he's 6'3", 205. He's not a small human.
Not at all.
Put him in this draft class. He's a pretty small human.
Oh my God. Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about. Actually, can we skip past the pitchers first, and we'll talk about Quentin Young quickly,
Yes,
because I think that makes sense, and then we'll come back to some of the arms. So Quentin Young was the Twins' second-round pick, 54th overall. Pipeline had him at 37. I think by consensus he was lower, and I'm
51.
51. Thank you. So I just
Still
wanted
have
to
the draft sheet.
Oh, there you go. Just walking through the volatility of his rankings. I've got 65, 56, 36, 55, 52, 37, 43, 65, 39, 101, right? So there's a wide variety there. Now, nephew of Delman and Dimitri Young, currently playing on the infield, legit 70 grade arm. It's 70 grade raw power. At the MLB draft combine, he was hitting, I think he hit one of his BP balls 115 with a wood bat. The rest were in the 112 to 114 range. I mean, it's like monstrous power. Does he stick at shortstop? Almost certainly not.
Right.
Does he have a decent shot to stick at third base? Yes. The arm will certainly play. And like watch him move. I think the tendency, and this is just like keeping it real, the tendency is to like be like, oh, it's Delman Young's nephew, and think about Delman Young base running or trying to make a play in the outfield. And like, he just wasn't a great mover.
Right.
Quentin Young is not that. And so I think for both of us, this pick came as a shock a little bit, or a surprise. I mean, this is the ultimate lottery ticket pick, right? And like, the floor is you don't get past AA, but the ceiling is a third baseman who hits 35 home runs in a season. So 100%. What did you make of this
I love it.
selection?
Yeah. I'll tell you why I love it, because the name that, like, the similar type of profile that the Twins have in their system is Brandon Winokur.
Yep, for sure.
And I prefer Young to Winokur right now.
That's a hot take.
Winokur, MLB has him as number 7 in the system. I'm not. That's
too high for me personally.
Right, and it's too high for me. So I'm not saying I put him at number 6 in the organization.
Yeah.
But if I were to rank the prospects right now, I rank Young ahead of Winokur. And so Winokur's also.
I would not.
And that's fine, because these are high volatility prep bats, and Winokur's had all of 300 at bats in Cedar Rapids. He's batting 220. Like,
what else? Home runs, OPS, splits by month, please. Like, that's a conversation for another day. But I'm just saying he's shown improvement.
But I as a third round pick, or second round pick, I prefer Young right now over Winokur. High upside, like you said, may never make it to AA.
Yep.
Right. But when you have some of the background that he has, just some of the traits that he has, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch, even if it explodes and fizzles.
Yeah, 100%.
So I like, if you ask me what my favorite pick is of the draft, hitter wise, hands down, Quentin Young.
Okay, I can get on board with that. My Quentin Young cautionary note is going to be, I think he had the worst swing and miss of any notable prep prospect last summer in this class.
And Brandon Winokur was similar to that.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's talk about my favorite pick for the Twins in the entire draft class. It was their second one, 36 overall, Riley Quick, right-handed pitcher out of Alabama, 6'6", 250. a 4-star offensive lineman with offers to play in the SEC. Let me just give you a couple Riley quick notes on his college arsenal. 4-seam fastball, average 97 mile per hour, whiff rate 30%. 2-seam sinker, average velo 97.1, 16 and a half inches of horizontal break. Ground ball rate north of 60%. Slider, average velo 86.1, 35% whiff rate. Changeup, average velo 88.7 miles per hour, close to 16 inches of horizontal break, 43% whiff rate. Good extension, overall ground ball rate of close to 55%. He also throws a cutter that I think the Twins are going to make him throw a bunch more because it's going to work well with his slider. I love this pick because I think Quick is interesting, and I also think it represents a little bit of a change in how the Twins are drafting arms. What was your reaction to Quick? Were you surprised it took an arm at 36? How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if surprise is the right word.
Sure.
I think I was hopeful that it wouldn't be college, right? Because that's less fun. But I do like the addition of a pitch that's just different, right? So you look at the prospects that are eventually gonna join, right? So Marco Raya and Andrew Morris are probably the next two closest.
Mm-hmm.
He's certainly different than them. He's more like the Charlie Soto type, just closer. And so if you view him as a prospect somewhere in between that Morris floor, Soto ceiling, I mean, that's a heck of a prospect to add.
Yeah.
There's some things that, maybe the floor is not as high as some college pitchers. I do come back to the fact that we heard it when Prelip was drafted, that the Twins had a great relationship with the Alabama coaching staff.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one thing that I'm like, this could be an excellent thing, because they go and draft a Riley Quick who's got ability that it's more a natural thing. But you add him into this mix with all of these other pitchers, and who knows? Is he a back end guy? Is he a mid rotation guy? Is he someone that turns out to be a setup type guy? Like, all of these outcomes are possible. But whenever you can add a quality arm, given a lot of the stuff that you spewed, that's pretty exciting, right? I mean, there's so much swing and miss in the best conference of college baseball.
But let's put it this way, because I started thinking about it this way the last day or so. If we make a comp to Zebby Matthews, who's the Twins' ultimate success story of a mid-round arm, not just who's like reached the majors, but they've done incredible work with. He came in throwing 91 and 70% strikes. Now he throws 97, 98 and like 67% strikes.
Right.
I like to think about it like this. With Zebby Matthews, he came in with 0 major league ready pitches. 0. They worked for 3 years to develop an arsenal with him, where he now has this 5-pitch mix, and it's a above average fastball, above average slider. With someone like Riley Quick, he's close to having 3 major league ready pitches now. And that's such a different starting point to someone like Zebby Matthews. And so everything you say about the variation and diverse range of possible outcomes for him is true, right? Like, he could be a reliever, he could flame out, he could get injured, He could also, if he's healthy and throws enough strikes, be one of the better pitching prospects in the low minors in 2026 within like 2 or 3 months.
So what's his strike percentage?
Oh, see, now you caught me off guard.
Because that would be significantly harder to develop,
for sure,
than adding 3, 4, 5 ticks to the fastball. Part of that too is, though, if you're throwing 91 and you're not hitting the zone, guys aren't swinging. If you're throwing 98, guys swing out of defense.
I don't have it I do have it somewhere. I don't have it to hand. He walked 8.9% of guys, which is not outrageous. He got a 45 for command from most outlets. That's like 3.5 walks per 9. Let's put it this way. if he replicated that in pro ball, that would be on the higher side of what you would want. But with the stuff he has, I don't think it would preclude him from being really, really good.
But I think Zebby Matthews, we knew, was going to profile as a starter because he wasn't walking guys.
Yep.
And if he's got spotty command, there's that range of outcomes. So yeah, I mean, certainly don't hate the pick. I would be curious to see. I don't think he'll pitch at all, but he's the type of guy that I would like to just see.
That would be so great.
Just let's see how you do when you go to, you report to wherever they report and just make these 17-year-olds look stupid when they get out of it. Because my whole thing is, however you end the season is how you're going to start the next season. If it's confident, let's go.
Yeah. And so just one note on that. I don't think we're going to see any of the Twins earlier drafted pitchers in games. It's just highly unlikely. There's a piece I put up at Twins Daily last year with one of the Twins pitching coordinators that kind of overviews what's the process they go through that I found really interesting. And basically one of the first things they'll do is get with the pitcher and kind of confirm their workload and then develop a plan for them. And that usually involves not pitching until 2026, but they'll be on a throwing program between now and then.
And if we don't see a lot of them pitch, we probably won't ever see Jason Reitz if he's turned sideways because he just won't be.
Okay, let's talk about the next three guys real quick. James Ellwanger, 3rd round, been up to 98. Ridiculous curveball. He has major strike throwing issues. I personally think there's much more reliever risk with Ellwanger than there is with Quick. But if Ellwanger does throw enough strikes, this is like major diamond in the rough territory with the type of stuff he has. Matt Barr, I want to touch on, and then we'll talk about Jason Reitz's unbelievable height. I think Matt Barr is my favorite pick from the entire draft, maybe, for a couple of reasons. So he's a JUCO. This feels much more like a Brewers pick to me than a Twins pick.
100%.
He's 6'6", 195. He has been up to 97. It's like a super high spin fastball up to like 2,600 RPMs. He has a slider and a curveball, which has been rated like north of 3,000 on both. So the stuff is like ridiculous. This is the type of guy that turns into like the type of guy that turns into a prospect like Jacob Mizorowski. I'm not saying he will be Jacob Mizorowski, but these are the like raw ingredients that lead to that type of outcome. And I think that's different for the Twins. Sean Johnson said as much in his press stuff that basically they got way less live looks at Barr, which isn't surprising because he's from a JUCO, but they relied on their player development guys, their analytics guys, their R&D guys to be like, here's what we could do with this. And so it's a little bit more of a kind of collaborative pick in that way, I think. But he's just super exciting. And then Reitz, 6'11", 215 pounds. I showed my wife a picture of Jason Reitz, and she was convinced that I had doctored the image and like stretched it out somehow.
Yeah.
Just Google pictures of Jason Reitz. He just looks impossibly tall. But he's also been up to 90. It doesn't look real.
It's not impossibly tall.
It is impossibly tall.
He's as tall as many people are tall that play basketball. He just weighs 80 pounds less than we do.
Sure. Sure.
That was the only thing I tweeted about, I think, the whole draft. Like, he's 6'11", 215, and he's way skinnier than you would think when you think 6'11", 215. Yeah. Imagine 6'11", 145 pounds. That's what Jason Reitz looks like.
Yeah.
And so what's kind of the thing, at least with Barr and Ellwanger, like, can they throw enough strikes?
For sure.
And that's why they're not first round picks.
Mm-hmm.
If Ryan Barr was throwing strikes, he wouldn't have been playing Division III JUCO.
Barr.
That's what I say?
Ryan Barr.
Is there even a Ryan Barr? That's like, dude just doesn't throw strikes. He was playing low level baseball.
Yeah.
And it's freaky, but the difference between that and the SEC is the ability to throw it over the plate. So, I mean, the range of outcomes there is he might walk 8 guys every 9 innings. And yeah, the stuff is great, but it's not usable.
Yep. It definitely could be a nothing. I just think that's an exciting pick. Here's my draft conclusion before we touch on another couple of guys. And like I think this is indisputable. Like they are leaning into higher velo, higher octane stuff. And I said, I wrote a review of day 2 at Twins Daily where I said, what's the impact going to be? We get to find out probably more flameouts, probably more volatility, maybe some frustrating injuries, but definitely more upside. And I think that's exciting because if you take 10 guys that have Matt Barr stuff, maybe one will be like a legit ace. Maybe one will be a guy who, or just call it this, a guy who can start a playoff game for you, as opposed to we have, no disrespect, Simeon Woods Richardson, who comes up, is great for half a season, then is struggling with velo, struggling to find the zone, all of that good stuff. So I kind of like this swing and this slightly adjusted approach. I think it's super fun.
Yep.
A couple of other notables. Justin Mitrovic in round 9 is another pitcher I think is super interesting out of Elon. He's another like mid-90s velo guy. He has a really, really good changeup too. Callan Fang out of Harvard, more of a pitchability guy. I think he is a good candidate for the lookout for him after velo camp if they can add on to Callan Fang. And then on the hitting side, one guy I wanted to call out, 11th rounder Ryan Daniels out of UConn. The Twins love UConn. They take a bunch of guys out of there. How's this for a season line? 365, 476, 744. 18 home runs, pardon me, walked 16% of the time, struck out 16% of the time, a 175 WRC plus from a kind of middle infield profile. Like if we're going back to what Sean said earlier of like, we just want guys who can hit, that strikes me as maybe a little bit of an under the radar profile in round 11.
He was awful for 2 years.
Yeah.
He was awful. To add on to that, as we get deeper, round 16, Jonathan Stevens, another Alabama guy. We text about him a little bit.
Yeah, you're like, I can't find anything out about this player.
Never threw a pitch. Never threw a pitch in Alabama.
But so didn't he throw in on the Cape, or am I making that up?
Yeah, he's like pitching in the Cape Cod All-Star game on Saturday. But he's transferring, I think, to Tennessee. Okay. I think that could be an interesting thing, right? Obviously, like I said, the relationship with Alabama is good. What is happening if he's not pitching there, right? Yep. So like the ability there is there, but there's been no results because there's been nothing to have results from. JP Smith was a third baseman. He's a first baseman that hits bombs. So for a 17th rounder, I think he'll be a guy that they'll probably sign and get in and just let him do his thing. And I don't think will they actually let him. I think he's played third base like one game in his life.
That's funny.
But he was drafted as a third baseman. But there are some fun names as we get deeper into the draft.
Yeah. So Jeremy, I guess just to finish off, and we'll save questions for next time for the sake of time. Overall impressions of this Twins class now. You've had a couple of days to reflect on it. What do you make of it? Do you like it? Do you not? And any kind of final thoughts before we close out here?
Yeah, I mean, I was on the record multiple times saying when you have a decent system where the Twins, I think, do, especially with a lot of guys that will be graduating soon, you kind of have given yourself the ability, or you've afforded yourself the opportunity to take a big swing, right? Mm-hmm. And we didn't go really in depth on that. Aside from Jace Laviolette would be a big swing, right? They didn't do it with the first pick. I feel like they played that one relatively safe, but then every pick after that, from rounds and quick. I mean, there's some risk, right? But there's upside there. Quentin Young, huge risk, high upside. Ellwanger, risk, upside. Reitz,
Barr the same.
The ceiling can't hold us. Like literally. Barr, very much the same. Agbayani, we didn't talk a ton about. McComb's younger. There's just a lot of guys, I think, that have a lot, like the upside's very high, the floor is very low. But when you have that, and he, like, you're not drafted for need, but you look at what the Twins currently employ, right? Brooks Lee, super young. Mm-hmm. Royce Lewis, super young. Luke Keeschel, young. Is Julian going to get another opportunity? He's not old, right? The outfield with Wallner, young. Buxton's not going to play forever, but is looking really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of guys there pitching wise. They need depth, but we talked about how good Joe Ryan is. We've talked about Zebby Matthews. Billy Ober's been great. You talked about Sim as a depth guy, and then we have all these other guys that are lined up and ready to go. Where if you miss on 1 year's draft entirely, like this turns out to be the worst draft ever. Like you haven't set your organization back a whole lot or at all because of how successful your drafts have been the last handful of years. We're not speaking of Walker Jenkins being close, Emmanuel Rodriguez being close, Caleb Culpepper getting closer. And so I think where this organization is and what they did lines up really, really well. 3 years ago, when the organization wasn't set up for this, we may have been like, "Bad, great, there's upside, but oof, if this doesn't go well, how bad could it be?" So I'm like, they've earned the benefit of the doubt. There's going to be major leaguers out of here, for sure. But is it going to be the 35 home run third baseman, or is it going to be the Matt Barr is a 6, he comes up because he throws really hard and maybe he walks and he goes back down. Like, we just don't know. And I think that there's, if Matt Barr turns into Miz, great. If Quentin Young turns into the greatest third baseman of all time, fantastic. But I think the opposite side of that is very, very much more likely to.
Yep. All right. Well, that's our review. Just want to preview what's coming up quick here, and then we'll get out of here. I do want to just touch on people sending really great questions. We will absolutely come back to them. I have them on the running order. Super appreciate it. Just for the sake of time today, we'll hold off until next time around, but that'll give us a chance to chat draft a little bit more. In the coming weeks, we are going to continue our work. We're going to transition back to digging into some Twins farm system updates, which I'm pretty excited about. We have not talked Twin system and minor league ball for a while. So we'll get back into all of that. We're going to have at least one additional draft recap episode, hopefully with a guest, and then also a Twins related guest coming up here in the next month or so, who I think is going to be really exciting and have great insights on prospects and guys that you want to hear about. So plenty of good stuff coming. Thank you guys so much for hanging with us during the draft coverage and the draft stream. And we'll catch you guys next week. Take it easy.